That sense of unease that you feel does not mean the world is against you or that there's something wrong with you. In reality, what seems like everything in the world being against you on your quest to become your best self is actually the greatest act of unconditional love bestowed upon you by God, because the person you are when desiring to be greater is simply not capable yet of doing the things that you need to do, and so that person must be destroyed and rebuilt as somebody new. What's up guys, and welcome to this video today. Now, despite the quite, I would call it clickbaity title of this video, you will understand if you're a fan of my content that I don't like to provide just surface level information. So this video is not going to be me just shouting at you and telling you to do more stuff as you might expect. And what I want to talk about today is the state of deep dissatisfaction that so many people, especially men, are in nowadays, with no real prospect of how to get out of it. And I don't think society helps this in any regard, because they just slap this label of mental health on everything. And while it's good that we speak about these things, that dilutes the sort of real cause of these things. And from my own understanding of it, which I consider to be quite unique and probably quite out there, as you'll come to see in this video, I think there is a very real reason that that's happening that we can investigate and hopefully use to our advantage. Now, dissatisfaction, the state of not being very happy with where you are, is a creative state that births a desire for something greater. And some of the greatest periods of growth in my own life occurred after just getting utterly sick and tired of where I was, and basically just exhausting all of the avenues of cheap pleasure in these things that you think in the moment are going to fulfill you, but ultimately just lead to more unhappiness. I believe that each of us is a very unique being, and we all are kind of called to do something. You could call it like a mission. You don't really get to choose what you want to do. It just sort of happens to you, and then you find that you're interested in these things and you desire to pursue them. So if you look at your own life, I'm sure that you'll see you don't really control the things that you naturally gravitate to. It just sort of happens. And the closer you get to that, the more of your authentic self that you embody. The thing is though, that when we are assigned this mission, we'll call it, we're not the type of person we need to be. You know, we're not the type of person worthy of executing on that mission, or to be worthy of having that life, embodying that reality. And that's where the growth lies, but only if you choose to go onto that hero's journey. And so you could say that gap between your current self and where you want to be is where all the work needs to take place. So the way I like to think about this is almost as if you've kind of signed some metaphysical contract with your higher self, the universe, God, or whatever resonates with you the most. But our small physical selves on this plane of existence aren't aware of this agreement, and the only way that you really can tell is that you desire for something more, to be somebody greater than you currently are. And I hate to break it to you, but once this sort of agreement has been made, then there's absolutely no going back. However, there is a caveat to this, and when I say there's no going back, I certainly don't mean that that just gives you a free pass and you'll be, you know, compelled just to take all the perfect actions to become who you want to be. The Creator gives us free will to decide whether we will act on these impulses from the higher self or not, but the result of not acting on those desires is that you will never really achieve any real fulfillment in your life. You'll feel a constant low level of dissatisfaction and kind of a gnawing anxiety that grows the more you try and numb it, and eventually that can lead to things like chronic depression. And these feelings will never go away, and in order to dull their impact, people end up resorting to coping mechanisms. And I believe this is where the majority of people actually operate today. Some of us have overt coping mechanisms like being addicted to harmful substances, and others have more subtle ones such as endlessly scrolling social media. But make no mistake, these all serve the same purpose. Unfortunately, so many young men are very depressed nowadays and addicted to things like video games and pornography, and they're just living in this state of quiet desperation with no real way out. I find the majority of creators in this space only speak about really surface level things like removing bad habits, for instance, but in reality it's a very emotional and spiritual journey that's fraught with difficulty and challenge, whichever path you decide to take. So I'd like to highlight a couple of facets to this. In choosing to ignore that calling of your higher self, it results in this ever-present looming sense of unease and discomfort in being as you currently are, not acting on what you know that you really should be doing. But then paradoxically, that's coupled with another type of discomfort in the form of anxiety and fear at the prospect of truly stepping into your authentic self and very likely having to overhaul your life and become a new you. So really it comes down to the fact that discomfort is a given and it's basically built into the game. Only one of those forms of discomfort results in actual growth and progression, whereas the others result in stagnation and decline, and the further you go down that path, it becomes ever more difficult to evolve. Make no mistake though, the type of discomfort we're going to feel in taking the actions that we know are going to progress us is a simple choice to make, but that really doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, quite the contrary. It requires the pain of failing just over over and over again, learning from your mistakes and then, getting back up and trying again. And slowly over time you progress. As physical beings with limited ego minds, we're bound by duality. And the concept of happiness cannot be understood without the opposing sadness, light without dark. And this is why things have to be this way. So what's key to understand here is this is absolutely fundamental to the process, and any growth simply couldn't happen without it. It's like on a video game where you can't progress until you constantly struggle to defeat the boss of the current level that you're on. When you truly embody this on an experiential level, it does bring a kind of peace, and you actually can develop a sense of gratitude for the hardship, because it's a signifier that you are in fact actually on the right track. It's supposed to be difficult because it's the only way to grow. It's like the process of a mother giving birth to her baby. It's not a pretty process. There's screaming, there's blood, there's pain, but the result of that is something divine. That sense of unease that you feel does not mean the world is against you or that there's something wrong with you. That only draws you into a stagnated victim mentality and only blocks you from interpreting events in an empowering way instead. In reality, what seems like everything in the world being against you on your quest to become your best self is actually the greatest act of unconditional love bestowed upon you by God, because the person you are when desiring to be greater is simply not capable yet of doing the things that you need to do, and so that person must be destroyed and rebuilt as somebody new. If this wasn't the case, then God, the Creator, would leave you to just be satisfied with your mediocre life, and then you would have no real desire. And self-development, self-improvement is so much more than people give it credit for. They don't talk about things like letting go of that old identity, which is a very real part of you and can be emotionally difficult to release. There can be a very real sense of mourning when this happens, and it can also come with physical manifestations like people dropping out of your life who you were friends with, or doors closing on situations that brought you comfort previously. But honestly, you have no choice, and nobody gets a free pass on this, and this is the unique journey of your life, whether you like it or not. So you may as well embrace it. And basically it comes down to the pain of growth or the pain of regret, and you have to choose which one of those that you want to pursue.